Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Eddie Marcus one more time. You know, I grew up, like most young boys do, in a strange environment. Now, I grew up going to church all the time, and I believed everything I heard in the book. I actually believed it. The problem is that spray some air freshener may to be going down my throat. The problem is that what I read and believed about the Bible was not practiced in the everyday way of life. Oh, people where I come from treated people nice. They didn't do too much gossiping. They invited folks to their house, and they treated people nice, and they talked about nice things about people. And when we got a TV, my great-grandfather would seem to have been real cool. So I guess I was raised up real cool. One thing, though, I was about 15, 16 years old before I ever knew anything about black people that had been in slavery. I thought the thing about Tarzan with the kids running around with bones in their nose and in their ears and stuff, I thought that stuff was real. I thought that's how we really were. I was programmed like I don't know what. And then there came a man along by the name of Dr. Martin Luther King, and he showed us that the things in the Bible could be true, even if they weren't true as written. Even if they were metaphors, they could actually be true. And that kind of messed with me in such a way that I wanted to be like that. The book had told me that Jesus was like that, and Jesus was my hero. And so Dr. King came along. He was my second hero. So I wanted to be like my heroines. But I must admit that in my youth, I gave away my life many times. And each time, God gave it back. And each time that I got it back, it was almost like I can imagine Moses seeing the burning bush. Now, if that was just a metaphor, I can still see the picture of Moses in a burning bush. And I can imagine how that would be. Because I know how it was with me when I experienced the miracles. So if people ask me, was the story about Moses true? I can only say I don't know. But if you ask me, could it be true? I would tell you yes. If somebody asked me, was Jesus real? I'd say I don't know. Was he born from a Virgin Mary? I'd say I don't know. Did he walk on water? I'd say I don't know. But if you ask me, could he? Then I would tell you, of course he could. Because with God, everything is possible. So ladies and gentlemen, what I'd like to speak to you for just a few moments today is, I gave my heart and no one cared. I gave my heart. I gave it away. And no one cared. So, having experienced the things I just shared with you, when I got about 27 years old, I had a change. My desire and lust to be on top, to fight this dog eat dog and outsmart everybody just like enough to get me where I wanted to be, it changed. And all of the people who were victims of society, people who were poor, people who found themselves committing crime and violence as a way of life, affected me in such a way that I could take what God had done for me and use me as an angel. Literally as an angel. Not one walking around with wings or glowing, but that my activities would be addressed in such a way that it would be as the voice of God speaking to people about truth. And this is how I saw that angelic persona within myself. Having made that decision, ladies and gentlemen, I decided to, you've heard me say this many times, stop working as a counselor with the Veterans Administration in Chicago and start washing windows in a storefront. And you can imagine my wife at the time, my gorgeous, fantastic wife, wasn't looking for a guy like this, so she decided that she felt much better somewhere else. And while I hated it at the time, today I don't blame her. I mean, this was altogether a different guy. I was expressing a new heart, a heart that had been shown to me, the heart of God. And so I began to do things, explore things that I had not explored before. I began indulging in things, and to make a long story short, I ended up with an intention of throwing my life away by joining the military at a time when Iranians had taken hostages. And I thought there would be a war in the Persian Gulf, so I wanted to go there and give my life so that my wife, who had decided and made me comfortably assured that it was more about the money than me. So if I was there to bring in the money, that was cool, but if I wasn't going to bring in the money, then I was not that cool. So I decided to let the last thing I'd do on earth would be give her some money, get killed, and she get some money. And I could feel good. That didn't happen. I got a chance. The Lord, God Almighty, preserved me from that massacre. And I got a chance to travel around certain places of the world I never would have seen had it not perhaps been for this. And I learned a lot. I learned an awful lot. Coming back to the States, God used me in a magnificent way, sent me out in the wilderness to teach me the world in which I lived. And my friends, I was taught well. And then I stepped out a blossoming child of God, excited about what the message I had to bring. The message that would eliminate all of the poverty, all of the crime, all of the violence. The message was beautiful. And I jumped out there talking about a life of victory eternal. Oh, I did that for a while, and for some strange reason, people were not really catching on. Then I decided maybe the title. So I changed the title from that to The Moment of Truth. A moment when you could hear the truth and it would open up your eyes in such a way you would not be blinded no longer. And you would walk according to that truth and you would begin to live. I did that for a while. It didn't seem to be catching. So I decided to change it again from The Moment of Truth to Paradise on Earth Unlimited. And it was during this time, ladies and gentlemen, that the system had been changed in such a way that they had an influx of drugs that were being put in the black community by people who apparently had something against blacks for one reason or another. I'm sure there were many reasons. And they used this infusion of drugs to take black people and arrest them and put them in prison populations like they were back in slavery again, but this time more confined, and could only do what they were permitted to do, could only go where they were permitted to go. This was the biggest form of bondage. And yet I walked amongst the people and I told them, I went to the churches where they talk about God all the time. And I told them that God was love. And I told them that God loved them. I told them that God had a plan that would eliminate war. that would eliminate bigotry and hatred and racism, and that all of their dreams could be guaranteed. I was so excited. Oh, was I excited. I gave up myself. And I had already made choices that put me in a position to be with the people that actually suffer. I knew my voice was genuine. I knew that I'm the one amongst many that had a relationship with God. And I could carry that truth, and I had a big mouth, and I could talk loud, and I could talk straightforward. But it wasn't catching. So I ended up trying to commit other acts to get attention. People weren't listening to the message that I was bringing. So I would commit crimes against the system, not against God, but against the system, so that I'd have to go to court. And I could defend myself as best they would allow me to. And the court records would depict exactly what I have been saying all the time, to let the people know that it was genuine for me. I wasn't just talking out of my mouth. I was really sharing my heart. And ladies and gentlemen, I would commit crimes. I would take money and I'd give it away to dope dealers, those guys who were committing these kind of violations according to the rule. I would give it to prostitutes who had submitted themselves to doing this act in order to survive. And I knew God had another way. Oh, does God have another way? And so I would commit these crimes, and I would go into the courtroom. Well, when I say commit crime, I took money from the state at one occasion. Another occasion, I took money from an employer. Now, I didn't steal it. I took it. And then I went and reported it that I had taken it. I told them why I took it, and I wanted to go to court. I wanted to go to be jailed, and so I was. And I wanted people to come to the court and listen to the testimony if they would, and if they wouldn't, at least it would be recorded. They didn't come to the court. They didn't care. But it was recorded. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I was given of myself. Even before then, I was so excited. I ran for, President of the United States. I think the first time probably was against Bill Clinton's first run. I wanted the American people to be free, all of them. I wanted all of their dreams to come true, and I knew politics was not the answer. But nobody paid attention. The public didn't, the church didn't, no one did. And I had committed myself to the extent that I had children that were hoping to go to college and live a certain kind of normal life, that I could not provide for them because I was walking down a path that would lead us not to a normal life, but to the real life. And so I sacrificed my kids as I was sacrificing myself for the benefit of God's love to be spread to the human race on earth here in America. So people ignored it, but it was still true. I ran against Bill Clinton the second time. The problem is that nobody was interested, so I didn't have any backers, I didn't have any funds, so I'd have to run as a write-in with a genuine message that supposedly caught fire like California fires, burned all over the place, but it never did. I found myself running for mayor, not as big a position as president, but it was a start, mayor of St. Paul. Nobody was interested. I began to think about other avenues to carry the message. Ran a senator from the state of Minnesota, here again as a write-in, but with the same champion program, that freedom and life and prosperity, all of these kinds of things, the fulfillment of your dreams. And nobody heard it. Nobody was interested. Even when Barack Obama ran for president, I ran against Barack Obama because I knew politics was not going to work. The only working thing is going to be people submitting themselves to God, and that's not really complicated. To commit yourself to God means that you put your faith in something that you can't see, you can't touch, you can't feel, but you do so because it's a loving instrument, and by believing that and accepting that, you allow that spirit of love to enter your being and energize you, and you become a physical loving manifestation of that which you have perceived God to be and you have become. And so the love and excitement that you expected from God was now coming through your hands to one another. Oh, it was so fantastic. but nobody could see it. So I ended up running for governor, ran for United States Senator again, even ran for mayor of Woodbury, Minnesota. And out of all of these years, to this date, 40 years, nobody has paid any attention at all to that message. At all to that message. I remember in the presidential election of 2016, I think the last time I went up, I did against, Barack Obama. And so here I am standing here in 2016, I'm watching all these guys sit up and say they want to be president, and all I could see was evil. I had done a lot of research, a lot of studying, and I found out that as much evil was being said against the Democratic candidate as the Republican. And so I saw two representations of evil. And I saw the American people not caring. All they would say, well, we'll vote for the lesser of the two evils. Didn't matter that it was evil, just the lesser of the two evils. So I'm thinking, how can a people could see this situation and go and vote for it? I recognize that the carnal community, I could see them doing that. But what got me is that the religious community was falling lip, line, and sink, doing the same thing. And I'm wondering, how could you say you love God and now you're out there finna go and vote for evil, either way it comes? I saw myself, ladies and gentlemen, as this finale was coming around, I saw myself walking years and years and years, thankful for the repeat that God had given me, thankful that I could walk amongst you. And even though the people that were around when I was a kid, most of them had died. And as you can see now, I'm a much older guy. So the people who are living today came along during my time. And that is a time that I believe that we would be the instrument of change. Those old people would have died out. We new people came along, and Dr. King and Malcolm and those guys were standing up for justice and stuff like this. And I knew that we would just be it. But it seemed that we were nailed down worse than our parents and our grandparents and our great-grandparents. And they had no love for anybody except the same old, same old. And here I am at this presidential election 2016, and I see the devil in comparison to what God had given me to share with the American people. I saw the whole total opposite. It was like seeing Satan come on the scene. Didn't have the horns in his head, but you can imagine that they were there. Didn't have the fork obviously in his tongue, but you could tell by the way he spoke that it's a fork there. You knew he had a tail because of the way he carried himself and how unhuman or inhuman this person was. And it was just like the devil out of the pit of hell. Couldn't find anything decent to say about anybody except those that were kissing his butt. And I'm thinking, no, I know people are not going to buy for this, but they bought it. I had seen God lifted up before them for years and years and years, and they never bid anything. Ladies and gentlemen, during these periods of time, whenever a governor was around, a new governor, I would communicate with the governors, trying to incite them to pay attention. I would do the same thing to church organizations all across the country. I would do the same thing to newspapers and magazines, trying everything I possibly could to get the word around that God was ready to liberate the people. And nobody paid attention. And now they have put the devil in the office. And anybody who thought that he was not the devil, 2.5, almost 3 years since he's been in office, you know he is the devil. Now, even the people that supports him know he's a devil, but they don't care. They say, give us this devil, because this devil works for us. This devil empowers us to make sure that we get power over others. And we don't want anybody having any power over us but this devil. And then I see the other political parties trying to revamp, trying to come back. And they are choosing the same old kinds of things they were doing before that made it possible for the devil to get in. And they're caught in a quagmire. They don't know what to do or how to do. They're trying this and trying that. And it appears that before this next election comes off, this man is going to be an authenticated hell in America. If he doesn't have to start a war, if he started a war, it definitely would be solidified. And so I'm sitting here wondering, thinking, and I go to church and I sit beside people who stand up and testify about how good God has been to them, but they never say what they've done for God. I listen to a preacher who gets up and tell you Bible stories over and over again. I've been listening to him for 69 years. And however old you are who go to church, you've been listening to him for that long. And I'm sitting there thinking, why am I sitting here? These people don't know God. I don't get a chance to talk for God in here. So why am I sitting here? I feel so out of place. And then have to laugh and smile and act like everything is okay. When I'm looking at people who have given privilege to the devil. I'm looking at people who are given privilege to the devil. Then I think to myself, I gave away my heart and nobody cares. I feel vindicated. Maybe about 10 years ago I was running for office, maybe 15 years ago, something. And one newspaper from some strange state wrote and responded to an article that I had written. And they said the problem with Eddie Marcus' campaign is he cares more for the people than they care for themselves. And that's what it's all about, ladies and gentlemen. And here I stand before you today, knowing that we got, what they say, 22 different candidates on the Democratic ticket that telling them people that they want to be president. I know they're basically saying if you can take Trump, you can definitely take any one of us. But to have so many, and they're going around the nation at town hall meetings and wherever they can get the attention at fairs or whatever, and they're saying what they are about and what they want to do for you. And I sit and I think about you, the American people. You, the American people, are the bosses. What job have you gone to and told them this is what you're going to do, and they hire you? No, it appears, if my memory is accurate, that they have a job description. They have duties and functions that they are expecting of the hired. And so if you are hired, you're expected to do those particulars, and you are rewarded with a form of payment. Except in this instance, you got people telling you what they can do, and you sit around choosing the one that you want to trust. It appears to me that you've lived long enough to stop trusting and start demanding. But you have to demand something that's worthwhile. You know how you talk about the hate groups. You know how you talk about the Nazis and people walking around with spewing out hatred. You know you don't want that. You know that there are certain things that are absolutely essential for you. And that is, first of all, a career of your own choosing that gave you some purpose in life other than trying to have sex. You got a responsibility, you got a duty now, and you chose it. And that means that you love it. And there's nothing in your way to keep you from doing it. And because you are doing it, you open up all the other avenues, starting with health care. Now you have so many people in health care, you have so much accessibilities that helps you to prepare to deal with sicknesses and diseases. To everybody who might get sick, got access to health care from the womb to the tomb. Everybody's engaged, involved to the degree that you have education unlimited and unrestricted. That's what is the benefit of this plan that God has for you. Food, clothing, and shelter. You never have to worry about any of that. And you got extras to take care of the infrastructure so that your cities and your towns and your nation can be as beautiful as imaginable. that you are not restricted from doing any dream of life. Only those things that are about death that are restricted. All of this is available to you. All you have to do is choose it. All you have to do is want it. And then when these people come around you talking about being your leader, being your spokesman, they don't come in like the devil. Because you choosing them. You tell them what you want. And you, when they say they can do it, then you ask them how. And if they start leaving you out, you can pass them along. But in the event you have some assurance by some people, you have come up with these plans. So anybody that you have accepted to represent you, if they get off the mark, you can put them right back on the path because you know what you want. You know how to get it. And you will not let them lead you astray. So I'm thinking, what do I look like now? You heard what I just said? That's me. That's my understanding of God. But where else is it? It's not in the churches. It's not in government. It's not in business. It's not anywhere. So, it's like I'm living on a strange island, giving away my heart, and no one cares. When I gave away my life, God gave that back to use. I, for 40 years, have stood before you as an agent of God, knowing exactly what you pray for, knowing exactly how to have those prayers answered. And the door has been shut. You haven't heard a thing. You got the devil running the country now, and it appears as though you're looking for an equal devil to replace this devil. Because the messages that I have been giving to you for 40 years, I'm giving it to you right now. And who amongst you are interested? Is the church? Are Christians? Are Muslims? Are Jews? Are Gentiles? Are men? Are women? Are black men? White men? White women? Black women? Are children? Are old folks who the devil is fixing to cut back on their Medicare, cut back on their Social Security, stop the farmers from working and give them welfare while they argue with other governments. And here I am standing before you with a master plan. And no one, I mean no one as far as I know, gives a good high hooter. So all I can say, I gave away my heart and no one cared. I don't have any regrets. I'm so glad that I got a chance to be used by God, because I was definitely ready to be used by you. Until next time, if there is, goodbye.